Hello. Today we're gonna have a conversation about something that I actually touched. I don't know if I touched on it exactly so much as I realized a conversation needed to be had with the way that tabloid journalism has focused on very specific artists in the Hi Brand. Hello, hello. How are you? I haven't been here for like a little bit. I think it's been a little over a week or more. Yeah, maybe Wednesday before last. Yes. I am sorry about missing last Wednesday. And then I ended up doing some Discord lives instead and promptly got very sick. And I'm not 100% better, but I'm uprightable now. So yay. But yeah, it feels like it's been a really kind of intense week for everyone. I feel like everybody's been navigating it just seems like all these different things have hit at once, so that is pretty interesting to me. I do know that things move in patterns, and I'm wondering why the patterns are where they are at this point in time for a pretty consistent amount of people. Thank you, Brant. Thank you. I hope so too. I yeah, I've been actually it's kind of silly, but like I haven't published another video or video essay, I guess, since it's been a month. It's been a whole month, which is wild because I actually started working on my next video, like my next upload immediately after my first. And then a bunch of things kind of happened that meant I had to focus in a very different direction for a little bit. And I've been able to go live a couple of times since then, obviously, but it's I I had a bit of an interesting experience trying to get the footage that I had filmed into a video form that was actually watchable. And there were a bunch of different weird technological things that were going on. I thought I lost everything that I had at one point. My computer got crashing, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And I finally think I finished with, of course, as soon as but okay, I think I finally finished something last night. And it normally I'm up working on these things until 3 or 4 in the morning and then working the next day, so it's like uh, ay. Of course I was gonna get sick, but I'm teaching myself everything from the ground up at the same time when it comes to video editing. And I know that I've noticed that, depending on the creator, people sometimes take like a month to make videos, and other times they do one every couple of days. And I'm always amazed by that because I'm like, how do you do all of this? But a lot of times I'm sure those creators aren't necessarily teaching themselves from the ground up, or they have a form or a structure already, or I don't know. They may have different ways that they're approaching it that are more efficient than I have developed yet. So I am learning. And it's anytime you're doing something new, it's kind of a process. Thank you, Brant. I really appreciate that. That's really sweet. Thank you. I I I am I when I made this video originally, it was very timely. It was like the week that everything was happening that I'm talking about in the video, and now it's been like a month since all that stuff has been going down. But so I'm looking at it, I'm like, oh, how do I do I really even have anything to contribute to the conversation? Because I feel like a lot of people have had conversations about the topic that I addressed in that particular video. But you know what? I figure, like you said, I should just do it because I've put a lot of time into it, and I'm sure it looks very much like it looks very much like somebody who is profoundly still learning. But yeah, I am hoping that I'll be able to have that up very, very soon, and um, stop myself from consistently trying to update or edit things, because I keep doing that. I'm like, wait, I forgot about this. Oh no, I forgot about that. And did I explain this well enough? And it's just like, oh yeah, it's ridiculous. So yeah. But in the process of doing that video, which was about essentially the art to the artist to audience relationship when the artist fails the morals of their own art. And I guess the general idea is like, what do you do when you're standing in the rubble of your favorite artist's failure? And um I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Thank you, Brant. I really do. Thank you. But yeah, so it's kind of like looking at, and I pick like 3 particular artists where that have had very profound things happen, that also all seemed to have certain revelations happen in the same span of time. Some of them have been consistently degrading our sense of confidence in themselves as artists. Others were, I think, huge shocks to the community. Others were huge shocks to the community, but you know, a bit of time has now passed. So there's been a re-examination of some of these artists' major failures, and the failures that is always fascinating to me, that these are mega stars, like huge names in the fields that they are a part of. It always seems to go towards the worst. Like, what the why is it not just this person is a bit of a frustrating individual? It's no, this person is a power control person, a power obsessed um control obsessed person who does not seem to recognize the humanity of others. It's like, ay, come on. Can't can't you do better? Your art is better than this. And that is kind of the core question that gets examined in that video, is like understanding what exactly these artists have done, and then looking at the way that we as an audience has tried to come to terms with, or needs to come to terms with, their failures. And in that process, I noticed something that was kind of interesting, and it was about how tabloid journalism has affected certain kinds of art. And I don't know how often it gets questioned that The Big Lebowski ah, oh my gosh. Yeah. Drinking water in a coffee cup with a straw, because why not? Um, but yeah, I realized that when it comes to certain kinds of journalism, and also the ways that journalism can be used in a negative way, it oh, that's who I meant to. Darn. I have to write this down. Darn. There was this one really important thing that I wanted to include in that video, and of course I forgot until just now. I'm so mad at myself. Ah. Okay, I'm writing myself a note to see if this is even possible. Um. Uh. Okay. Anyways, the dude abides. Shawshank. Ay. Oh man. I have to admit I've never watched The Shawshank Redemption. I did watch the new Castle Rock. It's not new. New to me. Castle Rock series, and kind of got a bit of an understanding of what the idea behind that is, but I haven't actually read or watched Shawshank Redemption. Thank you, Brant. You're so sweet. Thank you so much. I just want to do a good job. And yeah. But I was noticing in the process of doing that video how you always see a very specific sect of art represented in tabloid journalism, and you almost never see other figures of different kinds of artistic mediums figured in tabloid journalism. So if you think about it, if you think of like a grocery store aisle tabloid magazine cover, which figures, which names come to mind first? Thank you, Brant. Thank you so much. I appreciate that so much. I I I try. And I know I need to maybe be okay with not always doing the best job. Um, Otherwise, I'll never get anything out. Fall victim to the exact thing that I always think that I am avoiding. But you're right. But some of the first artists that people often come to think of or come to mind when it comes to tabloid journalism, it's National Enquirer, The Sun. Yes, exactly. Those types of journals. The people who are featured on the covers are people like Britney Spears, people like Brad Pitt, and people like who is it? Why am I blanking on her name? Oh my gosh. But you see very specific types of artists who show up in tabloid journalism. And you might get soap opera artists, or you might get, I feel like I don't see Zendaya on there, but I also don't really pay attention. But you see figures like Taylor Swift or, what's her name? Oh my God, what is wrong with my brain? Uh, what? Jen something. Jennifer Aniston. There we go. Or you see Olivia Rodrigo, or you see very specific. No way. Oh my gosh. Wait, Brant, have we talked about? I used to live right outside of DC. Oh my gosh. Are you in DC now? That's so cool. DC is such a beautiful city. It's such a varied city with so many different components to it. But I also think it's because of the ways that it is so affected by political things and political stuff. It gets very, I think, typecast into one specific kind of industry there, when I think there's quite a few others as well. But yeah, that's so cool. So oh really? No way. So my beginnings in the United States were right outside of DC. So that's amazing. That's so cool. Wow. It's one of those areas where I feel like it can be easy to forget you're actually in the South because you don't think you're in the South. No way. Oh my gosh. My mom used to tell me about going to the Hill all the time because that's one of the areas that she would go to for work. Um, I don't know exactly what always the context was, but I do know that she would talk about it. It'd be like a phrase that I remember being like, "Well, on the hill." Like, what is the hill? Um, Obviously a hill, but yes, still. Um, with tabloid journalism, you see a very specific kind of artist. You see musicians who are generally pop stars, and you see actors who are of the upper echelon of actors, or actors and musicians who are in I guess you could say for definitely in mainstream media, you don't often see figures from indie films or from more alternative communities in mainstream gossip magazines or tabloids. But it's also very interesting to me how it's always actors, it's always musicians, like radio friendly musicians generally. Um, yeah, and you don't see dancers, ballerinas, you don't see ballet performers, you don't see um, sculptures. Wait, how do you say this? You don't see painters, you don't see mixed media artists, you don't see visual artists, you don't see poets, you don't see authors, you don't see um, craftspeople, you don't see uh, prop designers, you don't see, you only see, yes, it is. It is. You don't see people like that, even though they're all just as profoundly part of the arts as a whole. But it seems so fixated on a very specific kind of artist who is often has visual association with their art, where they are inextricably linked inexorably linked. And I always thought that was quite odd. But now that I think about it, when it comes to tabloid journalism, you're not really going to see Neil Gaiman on the cover. Maybe in the UK you'll see J.K. Rowling on the cover, but not definitely. It doesn't often make its way. That type of fixation doesn't quite make its way to the US. But on top of that, the only authors that I feel like you see are authors that are so incredibly overwhelmingly huge on an international scale that they have the ability to affect generations and generations of people in a, I guess you could say, a metric focused way. You're right, Brant. And I was thinking about the hierarchy of why we view certain kinds of art forms as more or less worthy of a tabloid sensationalism. So when it comes to the music industry and when it comes to the acting industry, hi Dark Lord Ken, hello. Capitalist induced cultural malaise? Well, yes, I'm not going to say no to that. A lot of things are very much a factor of the capitalist induced cultural malaise. This is absolutely another form of capitalism, and I think examining that as part of the goal today. That too, Brand, how people are brands and can sell their fame. But what's interesting is like authors are also branded. But I wonder if we have less as a public consciousness of an understanding in a visceral way of their branding. So, for example, authors are often meant to be seen through the lens of the work that they make and are less required to be seen through their physicality. Whereas actors and musicians, especially if they want to be in the mainstream, often are required to be seen almost exclusively through their physicality in order to take the art that they make seriously. And that's quite curious to me because you don't see the same thing of theater actors. Like theater actors and say opera singers or musical theater performers, you don't see them on tabloids. You don't see figures who also still have to be very, or dancers, you don't see them having, who are very, very, very focused on their physicality in their ability to participate in the creation of art or with use their physicality to create and make art and interpret art as well, you don't see them on tabloids almost ever. And even before there was tabloids in the way that we know them now, I think the times that you would see tabloid media focused on theater performers was only when movies didn't actually exist yet or were not as popular because they weren't as available. And that is kind of incredible to me. Like, why was it so fast and so easy to shift the cultural focus from theater actors and theater performers to cinema? And is it because of the fact that actors that appear in cinema could eventually make their way to your own home? But even before that started, because, the ability to take essentially a film home and consume the media of that film and then also experience a sense of closeness and identification with the actor in the way that eventually led to what we now fully understand to be parasocial bonds wasn't an immediate process, but the interest in how an actor who appeared on screen lived their lives has, I think, took quite an intense role in the center stage structure of how we view interest. Hey Casey, how are you? Hello, it's good to see you. Hello, hello. Oh, yay. Hi. We're talking about what's tabloid worthy in art and why certain forms of artistic creation don't show up in the tabloids and others exclusively do. Specifically, why you see cinema actors, especially mainstream cinema actors versus theater performers, on tabloids, and you see soap opera stars on tabloids, and you see musicians on tabloids, preferably when they have either been are able to be put into a situation through purposely misinformed context of having accomplished some kind of wrong or social ill. So I do think that's quite interesting because the kinds of actors, the kinds of musicians who you see on tabloids are generally also going to tend towards the right? Yeah. It is. And I think it is definitely, there's this interesting hierarchy in terms of who is seen as capable for consumption when it comes to certain creators. So there's always been this narrative that if you get into Hollywood, it's this kind of sleazy space with a casting couch, and there's um, a lot that you're opening yourself up to that is quite dangerous, and also a association. That too, Brant. Yeah. No, that I understand too. It's like, why do you need to know everything? But it's this association with being able to see someone on a screen and want to have some kind of physical representation of your relationship with them. And I wonder if that is where tabloid media comes in. You get to have these photos where you get to peek behind the curtain of the way that you normally see them, which is in the performances that they are doing. And oftentimes, because with cinema is supposed to be a secret lens watching for the audience, where the people within the film are not, even though we know that they are actors who are creating these scenes, and we know that there is this great machine of massive amounts of like of crew who are working together to make those scenes possible, there's still this sense of intimacy, as if we are part of the actors' lives, watching the actors' experience, as if we are there and part of it, but also secret. And with a theater performance, people cough, people move, there's shuffling. You can't, even with an incredibly engaging performance, you can't pretend that you're not watching somebody pretending. That is the truth of the matter. There's a very structured space that you go to participate in this experience of a story, and the actor portraying that character is still, there is still the awareness that they are portraying a character. And with theater, I do think a lot of people, they may not realize how even in the back of their minds, even when they're deeply taken in by a performance, they're still aware of that. There's still the possibility of being pulled away and pulled out. And watching a filmed theater performance isn't the same as when you're there. There's something about the way you can feel and hear and listen to people breathe and move, and the shuffling of their footsteps as they are moving across the stage, or the ruffling of their clothing, all of that, and even the way that theater performances that are filmed are shot, it doesn't give you the same sense of peeking in secretly to a person's life. Whereas with cinema, you definitely have that. And with cinema, you can also have quite explicit scenes, both in the like intimate way and in a violent way, that are really hard to replicate on a screen or on a theater stage. The disconnect in the immersion. Yes, Casey, that's it exactly. And so I wonder if that is a reason that when it comes to consuming the bodies of and the images of the actors who appear on screen, there is such a distinction. But on the other hand, with authors, they'll create stories where sometimes they're quite, the intimacy is intense. And you see, and I mean that not just in a physically intimate way, but also in an emotionally intimate way. You're often seeing inside the person's head. You're getting their perspective. Most books take place from the perspective of a character who is experiencing things as you are experiencing things. And you're feeling what they are feeling. You're seeing what they're feeling, what they're seeing. So, yes, a performance have to adjust to the audience. You're right, Brent, you're right. And so the performances also change every single time, because you have to adjust to the audience and what they may respond to. Certain things an audience might laugh at quite intensely, others they might not. And in a book, you don't have that same issue, but you are still having an intensely intimate experience in the story. But maybe, and this is again me positing, the reason you don't see authors who are on the covers of tabloids is because the work is the only part that people consume. And the most popular authors often find a way to avoid being seen outside of their work, unless they are extensions of characters within their work. I'm thinking of Neil Gaiman because I just did a whole video about him and Hugh Jackman and J.K. Rowling. And what really interested me, and I also have personal experience with this because I went to a poetry reading that Neil Gaiman had given. And at the time, I had not really taken in that much. Oh, I thought I saw a giant cockroach for a minute and I almost. Okay, nope, that was not a cockroach. That's just a shadow. Oh, God. Okay, the terror has abated. Okay. But anyways, when I went to that performance where he was just standing on stage and reading bits of his work, it was so fascinating because everybody around me was profound and deep fans, or at the very least, fully enraptured. And it did. The terror is real. It didn't take me long to become equally as enraptured in the experience because I was also able to have a total. Thank you for the likes. It's so cute. Thank you. Thank you. I was able to have a complete um, disengagement from my physical self to be engaged in what his words were creating. It was as if, and he was exceptionally good at this. It was as if you were speaking, you were both together weaving a world. Like you were both, almost like you and him were the camera lens capturing a story that was being told. It was a very interesting experience, and I can't say that I've fully experienced something quite like that since, where there was a sense of complete disengagement from oneself as an audience member, and even him as a performer on a stage by himself in this vast auditorium with multiple levels of people watching him, and there being a microphone in front of him and a little podium and everything. And he was just something about the way he was speaking softly that maybe this is a core human experience because it is replicating the way that storytelling used to operate, where you'd sit in a public space or a social space and an elder would tell a story and you would trade stories. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God. Oh God, no. I am deeply arachnophobic. No, 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 no. I could not do. I could not do spiders like that. Nope. 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 Ay, ay, ay. Oh, how do you, how do you even, I can't even think about it. Oh, oh, and there are the fuzzy ones too. Okay. Not gonna think about that. Mm. I love daddy long legs when I can't see them. The rest of them, if I can't see them, it's fine. I can't see them, it's fine. They're not there. They don't see me, I don't see them. It's fine. But, oh, God. Nope. Nope. Can't do either. I don't know how you do it. I don't know how you do it, Ken. That's Dark Lord Ken. That's wild. Oh. Ugh. Um, but yeah, so there's this really interesting experience of listening to someone tell a story and being woven into the threads of that story in tandem with literally thousands or like hundreds, definitely hundreds of other people at the same time. And that story is being woven by one person, and there's not these big there aren't visual aids there. It's just this kind of soft, well done lighting, and it just transcendent in the weirdest way. But you're not going to see Neil Gaiman on the cover of The Sun or Us Weekly or the National Enquirer, uh, which is kind of shocking when you realize that he has committed like criminal, or at least is alleged to have committed criminal acts that would normally be absolutely eaten up by those exact tabloids, because the crueler and the least the less kind it can get, the more they love it. The more the headlines will blare in that bright yellow, like intense text that you cannot ignore. And they'll have those overblown videos or photos of whoever it is the text is supposed to be about, all patched onto one cover. And it's kind of fascinating because you have this person who is a performer in every way, and what he's doing is not that radically different from what an actor ultimately can make you feel. Maybe the biggest difference is probably that he's doing it with no other aids. There isn't the editing going into the structure of how that performance is viewed. There is no um, crew behind it other than who is doing the lighting and the sound at the venue. It's his words and his personal presence that's creating that sense of otherworldliness and lifting you from your space and your seat and your own self into this other world. Oh, yes, absolutely, Brent. No, that I 110%. Yes, you are very right. You are very right. You are very, 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 very right. 100 and bajillion and 10%. Yes. Um, that is very similar. You're right. Preachers and good performers are exceptionally similar. And outside of, and I also have been quite divorced from religious environments for such a long time that, and my environment of an experience of most religious spaces were based on fear versus based on worship. So there is a, I think, different approach that I may have had even in those moments where it was much harder for me to transcend into the concept of a godly story or holiness as a concept, because I was significantly more scared of what would happen in the process of that sermon being delivered. And so it's, I was, I'm glad you picked that out actually, because I'm just now realizing that um, that is a connection that I don't remember having, or that I have had very minimal of. And anytime I've seen it, I've always been quite awed by it. When you have one person who's so capable of weaving a world with nothing but their voice and the language that they use, that they're capable of encouraging those around them to participate in transcending themselves. Mm-hmm. Oh, 110 bajillion% agreed. Yes. And to me, I feel like those environments are very much so, regardless of whether or not I agree with the sentiments of the organized religion that is behind the reason everyone is gathered and the reason that the preacher is sermonizing. I am never going to deny that the entire structure of that is the core of how human community works, which is, essentially having an interpreter of human nature and the like nature as an existence, the natural world being a coming together, I guess you could say, in trying to come to a sense of understanding and finding the beauty and the mythos in it. So yeah, but okay. So the other one of the but the fascinating, well, okay, so what was the other thing I was thinking with this? Oh right, okay, so hierarchy in terms of like tabloid worthiness. So whenever, like, a lot of authors, even though they will absolutely delve into some of the most intimate structures of a person's life and even their physical senses, and that is it is not uncommon for authors to have pretty graphic um, sexualized scenes in their works, even deeply mainstream ones. um, they're not seen with the same level of derision as what many actors experience. And I wonder if, oh, it's gonna start. Can y'all hear that? Yeah. No. Whoa. Um. Ah. Did you hear my bones? That was my bones. Okay. um. But yeah, so you don't see authors who are creating these quite intimate experiences getting pasted on tabloids the same way, even if we're still. You can't. Okay, cool. Never mind. Haha, cool. Cool. Um. Um. Yeah, you don't see them showing up in those same spaces. So that idea that maybe like intimacy is the connecting factor between tabloid and actor as the main focus for um I guess being the subject of tabloids. Maybe that's not of the connecting factor that I need to be looking at. And I'm wondering what other components go into why celebrities are generally associated with tabloids and associated with actors and musicians, mainstream musicians, but you don't often see the same approach when it comes to authors, when it comes to dancers. Like I feel like I don't know if I very possibly missed this, but I don't think I've ever seen Misty Copeland on a tabloid news, like a tabloid cover. She might have been mentioned within, but I don't know if I've ever seen her as like on the main focus of like, oh, look what we found out because we decided to completely invade her privacy and dive into things and then make up stuff about what we decided would be convenient to sell newspapers this week or magazines this week. And I wonder why it is that when it comes to certain mediums, ones that have been held into really high regard are so easily discarded as a component of interest for the wide ranging audience of those who might see a tabloid journal in a grocery store aisle, whereas others are seen as untouchable in those spaces. So you know, like you won't, like I said, you won't see Misty Copeland. You probably wouldn't see who's his name, Andrea Bocelli on a yes, exactly, Brant. That you wouldn't recognize most authors in person. Like I didn't realize what Neil Gaiman looked like for a long time. I had a vague idea of what J.K. Rowling looked like, but only because I think she has been shared so much and been interviewed so much and had such a huge global impact that is hard to compare. Um, really? Wow. Wow. And he's a huge author. Huge. Like one of the biggest, most consistent, like top of the list bestsellers. Every time he has a book, it comes out and ends up on the bestseller list. Like there's just he's one of those authors that in a comparative sense would probably be on par with someone like well, maybe not Pedro Pascal because I don't know anything about is it Tom Clancy? Yeah, Tom Clancy. I don't know anything about his politics and I don't think I've ever read a Tom Clancy book, but at the same time, I have no idea what he looks like. Even when they have pictures in the back of the book, I don't remember. It like gets erased from my mind. The majority of authors that I've sincerely enjoyed, I have no idea what they look like. So for example, like there's this one guy, his name's Caleb Carr. This is one of my favorite authors ever. This is a beaten up old book that I have that I love this book. And it's oh. Look at it. There's a picture of him in the back and I never even noticed. Okay. I have had this book since I was probably about 8 or 9. I've had it since I was little. And I've read it so many times. It's easily one of my favorite books. Until literally right now, never noticed that the author was in the back of the book. I know that happens, but I just never noticed. Okay, so now I have to check. My next favorite is this lady. Her name's is Sharon K. Penman. Don't know. Nope, no picture. No picture. I've also had this book for a really long time. I love, she has this one story called Here Be Dragons, which is about the kind of fight for Welsh independence in the 1100s. And it was my favorite book in elementary school. Like it was my favorite book in elementary school. I would read it again and again and again. That and Harry Potter, those were my two favorites. So I feel like oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm sure they're super out of date. Like I don't even know when this book was actually printed. When was it printed? Uh 1994. Whoa! Whoa! This is old. $19.94. Okay. So this has been around longer than me. Wow. Wow. He's worked in television, film, and theater? Seriously? How have I never... How... What? Well, I wouldn't know. Okay, one other... there's only one screenwriter and author that I actually know what he looks like is George R.R. Martin. And then I think that might only because I don't even... Yeah, nope. I think that's only because he is so involved in the media process, the press junkets. Like, I don't know what the authors of my favorite comic books look like. I don't know what the voice actors of my favorite series look like. I don't know what... I know what Carl Sagan looks like, at least. This is another favorite one. I know what Carl Sagan looks like, but yeah, okay. That's wow. That's kind of surprising. Yeah, he is. He's so memorable, but he's also, you know what? He was the social face. So he did do the interviews and he did do the press junkets when it came to trying to popularize and humanize the importance of space travel in order to help humanity understand the importance of working together. And I think there are very few authors who've ever done that. Okay, one of my favorite series of all time, Vampire Hunter D. Do I have any idea what the author looks like? Absolutely not. No way. I mean, I could literally fall over his foot and not know. I'd have no idea. I don't know what he looks like. I don't know what Yoshitaka Amano looks like. Favorite artist? No, I have no idea. What even was that sound? I have no idea. Absolutely no idea. But yeah, nope. Any of my favorite webtoons? Nope. I know what Genji Ito looks like. But that is also because he purposely Vampire Hunter D? Have you read them? I am... Oh god, I have so many to read. This was the final one that I have. Which... This is volume 29. Okay, actually, I am missing between... Where's my... Oh, looking around at my books. Sorry, they're all in on these big shelves way up. Anyways, I got 1 through 4, and then I got, I think, 11, and then I have volume 29. And I've been trying to find them all for so long and so hard. Like in physical form, it's so stupid hard. And I should just get them online, but I keep trying to go to bookstores to get them because I want to support independent bookstores. Anyways, it's silly. But yes, I also need them to make okay, this is unrelated. I need them to make a live action adaptation or a fully animated adaptation, like a full anime. I need a full anime. I need the full series. I need this to happen. When? Okay, anyways, sorry, my nerd moment is over. I mean, what am I talking about? My whole life is a nerd moment, but yeah, what the heck? God, why don't they make this? Why don't they make it? Why don't they? It'd be so good. Especially if they did it now. The movies are not enough. Need more. Really? Oh, that's interesting. So do you feel like the nonfiction authors you see more of, or is it that the fiction, like unless fiction authors are actively involved in translating their work from a book form to a screenplay and also directing it in some form, do you feel like there is, have you seen many of these authors? Hi, Ellie. Hello, hello. Today we're talking about, I'm being a nerd, we're talking about tabloid worthy artists and who ends up on the covers of tabloid magazines. The ones in grocery stores or like the physical ones, like the ones that you see. And that very specific form of media that they have, like the TMZ, but even pre, I think, when TMZ was TMZ. And the way that very consistently the artists who show up in those spaces always seem to be mainstream actors or musicians who are very, very, very high profile. You don't really see alternative creators on there, and you definitely don't see um, dancers, you don't see poets, you don't see authors, you don't see screenwriters. Every once in a while, you will maybe see a director, and you don't see like the kinds of performers or creators who are often hidden by their art, where we have mm, oh, that's interesting. That would make more sense. Oh, that's so perfect. I love it. I love it. I love it. That's awesome. It's so good. Yay. But yeah, that's kind of where we are right now with this conversation. I was nerding out because I was going through the books that were immediately next to me, and I realized I have no idea what the author of Vampire Hunter D looks like. I have no idea what Yoshitaka Amano looks like. But I fortunately know what Carl Sagan looks like. But until I literally just opened this book, did not know who, and this, I've had this book since I was 9. It was published in 1994. I've had this book since I was 9 years old. Did not know the artist's picture was in the back. Didn't remember his face. And then one of my other favorite authors is a historical fiction author named Sharon K. Penman, who kind of focused on the fight for independence of Wales from England in the 1100s and the early 1200s, and the kind of end of the reign of uh, King John, who was the brother of Richard of the Lionheart. And these are my favorite books when I was in elementary, middle, and like high school. Like obsessed with this series. And I have no idea what she looks like. I could not tell you. I have no concept whatsoever. And it's never occurred to me to go look. It's never occurred to me to go figure that out or find it. I'm sure that there's pictures of her online. It's never occurred to me to even think to go in that direction. And with authors, it's as if the entire concept of being an author means that you're supposed to not be seen. Your art is the only thing that is supposed to be seen. So I imagine you get some level of anonymity unless you're also associating yourself with the film world, which is what we've been figuring out. Oh, science fiction book that I recommend, like an author I really like. Um, oof, let me think. I have all my books in this big shelf up here, over here. Science fiction. Um, the first thing that's coming to mind is Neuromancer, but I haven't actually read that myself, so I don't know if I can recommend it. I just know that it's really well done, from what I've read about it, or at least it was very impactful. Um, why is my brain? I know that we had this conversation too. Um, science fiction author I really like. Oof. Hmm. Mm. Darn. Oops. Sorry. Um, I'm looking at my books and trying to remember. Um, hmm. Let's see. This one was good. I don't know if this is the one that I was thinking of. Darn. Okay, I'm gonna have to come back to you on that and think about it because it is frustration. Why am I not remembering any of these? Not Clive Barker. Darn. Thank you, Brant. Thank you so much. That's so sweet. I was kind of struggling today with um you know when you're just you just don't have everything, nothing is like right. It's not working. the It does make sense with me though. It does. I was gonna actually try and brush my bangs forward and do the bangs, but they have grown so long that they go directly into my eyes now. So I gave up and I was like, okay, to the side it is, because I was like, I won't be able to see. I won't be able to see it all. Um, I probably should cut them again, but I don't know. I go back and forth from being very excited about having bangs to getting very frustrated by them. So, although I did have a baby bang era, a few. Too much smile. Oh yeah. Nope, I can't even do it without trying to smile. um, I had a baby bang era a few months ago, and I keep forgetting about it. I think it was August of last year. My bangs were like all the way right here, which was so easy to style. But um, yeah, okay, man, why am I? What even is that? Okay, so oh, was it Murakami? Because it's not exactly sci-fi. There are components of sci-fi. Man, that's gonna eat at me. That is totally gonna eat at me to try and think of who it was that I wanted to recommend to you. I'm so sorry, Ellie. I'll have to keep thinking about it and hopefully it will become available in my brain. You know what's gonna happen? As soon as I end the live and walk out, I'm gonna see the book that I was thinking of on the shelf. And I better remember to tell you before I move from that spot. I have to remember to do that because if I take even a step, if I turn around and don't have my phone in my hand, it will be gone. So, okay. So I have to remember to do that. But okay. So far when we've gone through and kind of tracked where we I guess posited some ideas about why it is that certain types of art is tabloid worthy and others aren't. And I shouldn't say art, but why certain types of artists are consumable in the tabloid form of journalism and miscommunication most of the time, and why others aren't. And with authors, there's definitely, we've kind of established that there is this desire to see authors in a particular light. even though we were kind of looking at the role of intimacy in the ways. Thank you, Stephen. Thank you, thank you. Oh no! Where did your message go? Ah, no, that was so helpful. Talking about Neil Gaiman. Um, talking about. Oh, right. Okay, so we were kind of looking through the role of intimacy in how we maybe as a audience consume the idea of the artist. And the first thing I kind of posited that we are still kind of working through is the idea that when it comes to cinema acting versus theater acting, or versus other kinds of physical performance like dance or even comedy, like comedic performances, or stand-up comedy even, you there is this sense of not of being in the same space, like a little secret fly on the wall, when a film is progressing, where you are fully invested in the story and you are removed essentially from your physical self to immerse entirely in the story. And it's as if the actor is not aware that you are there. That is the goal. The actor is supposed to be unaware of you being there so you can see the story in a way that allows you to experience their most intimate moments of both profound horror, rejection, joy, happiness, and even on a physical, sexual, intimate way, that kind of intimacy as well, which leads to a lot of audience people find a lot of the audience finding connection as well to that actor based on how attracted they are to the actor, or the way that the character is written and the actor portrays that character, to see the actor in a more attractive way than they may have initially or would be seen outside of those roles. So that was just kind of the first thing we were looking at. But then we were thinking, well, when it comes to the way that an author explores stories, what's that different? Because I was talking about with Neil Gaiman, I went to go see him in person. He did a poetry and kind of performance and also kind of talked through some of his stories that he'd written about. And there were little small anecdotes from his personal experience of sharing those stories as well, versus just personal experiences of his own life. So he's still keeping a shield up, but it was almost as if he was weaving a story together with us, like audience and him were all working in tandem, us by listening and immersing ourselves, and him by putting the words together into creating another story that we were all watching in some way. And that is almost like a recreation of the experience of watching a film, um, where you have this intense level of intimacy. And with actual books and things, you are literally in the brain, in the mind, seeing out of the eyes of the character. And that should mean that we see these. Well, should it mean that we see these authors with the same level of consumable intimacy that we see actors, especially cinema actors, who we are uh, supposed to find attractive, or many people do find attractive, or who are often pushed to fit very specific and limited beauty ideals to be attractive, and all of the components of that should technically work in the same way, but they don't. And so we're kind of, that's where we are now. We're kind of figuring out why they don't. What's the difference? And why is there a difference as well between when you watch a dancer like Misty Copeland perform with such intensity and grace and power and beauty, all wrapped into every component of how she moves, but she is not going to show up on the cover of Us Weekly, in at least not normally, unless she decides to show up in a film. And then that seems to be the moment that the permission is granted. But is it because we are seeing her in person That's true, Brant. People don't care about screenwriters, even though the screenwriter is the one writing the story the actor is portraying. And maybe it is just the simple act of the story that we are seeing through our mind's eye, which also becomes the camera lens, is focused on the actor, and the actor is portraying a story of somebody who's not supposed to know we're there. The screenwriter knows we're there. The author knows we're there. The dancer knows we're there. The theater performer knows we're there. The opera singer knows we're there. The musical or the stand-up comedian knows we're there. So is that why this becomes consumable? Because we as the audience are not feeling perceived? Is that the reason that we're able to then have this desire to consume the entire idea of an actor and the actor's life, especially the components that they may be the most uncomfortable with others knowing about? Because we don't think that they can see us? Curious. Because at the same time, we all know that the actor sees us. Maybe not individually, but without an audience to care to watch the actor doesn't get to be an actor. An actor can act in their own room and do their own thing, and it's acting, but so there's a community component as well. I like this perspective. So it's like if a tree falls in the forest, is it actually, and no one hears it, did it fall? Yes, it does. But the perception and the act of perceiving and the act of consuming that perception is perhaps a uniting component, and then everybody can get together as an audience member and to some degree dehumanize the actor, or in the most negative form could dehumanize the actor to want to explore the ways that they are both qualified for adoration and not qualified for adoration, so we don't feel bad as an audience for wanting to know things that we would feel uncomfortable knowing about anyone we interact with on the daily. Ooh. Ellie, I don't know if this is okay. Here's the thing: you just wrote this beautiful thing, you just wrote this beautiful, intense, visceral thing, and you're like, "Well, does anybody even care?" And it's like, duh, yes, yes, absolutely, 110%. And you use it in every way that you move through the world, whether or not you're consciously aware of it. But I think that is the thing about writing and about creation, is you would not have any way for that for the actor that's being consumed through tabloids to be an actor that is being consumed through tabloids if there was no writing for them to interpret in their performance. There would be no way for that to happen. And as we kind of established with George R.R. Martin and Neil Gaiman, those are writers whose work has been transformed into scripts and then into fully fledged stories. And as a result, we know what they look like. When things appear only in this form, we don't know what the author looks like. But when you end up seeing that in, like, if this was made into a series, which I don't know if it has been. Margaret Atwood liked this one. Okay, anyways, if that was made into a series, then we would know what the author looked like. We might not know what the screenwriter looked like, though. So there's all these interesting layers to how this works. where there's so much awareness and a lack of awareness at the same time in how we all interact with this concept. Touch a billionaire like it'll rub off on them? Oh, if only. Nope. That's true, Brant. That's true. This desire that if perhaps there's some way that person has been deemed special can then make us all special by association. Which I guess does speak. That's true, Ellie. If you write something just for the purpose of making money and you have no form, hey Riley, hello, hello. And you have no intent for there to be artistic merit to that creation, it's you can create, well, okay, I actually might take issue with the concept of the word content, only because for my own self-preservation. And that is because technically what I create whenever I make my own little YouTube commentary videos is content. Is it an art form? I don't know. Is it art? Is it media what is it? Is it journalism? What does that leave us with? Because I don't know if it's journalism, it's not writing, it's commentary. So what does that leave one with? But again, I'm also going to oh, cool, Riley, that's awesome. But that also is me being silly. On the other hand, you're also very right. Content is not necessarily the same thing as art. There's definitely the point of, it's like making it's the candy analogy, where you can make the most exquisitely created homemade food item, and then you can make the item that's created with a lot of like plastic and petroleum, and someone might prefer the plastic and petroleum just from consistent exposure. And yeah, which is an interesting concept. But one thing I'm wondering is also, so far when it comes to who ends up on a tabloid, we haven't, I don't think at any point yet I have established that tabloids are a good place to be. But inherently, because we see tabloids as a reflection of who is identified as worth talking about and worth consuming, there is this, even if it is kind of an awful experience for anybody who's actually being put in the tabloid, it's seen as a sign of social hierarchy. That's fair, Ellie. It is not exclusive to the wealthy to like things that do not challenge oneself and instead encourage cognitive bias. That is very true. It's also, I think, important to recognize that that is still the case at all levels of human structure. You could be the wealthiest person, or you could be the least financially wealthy person, and still find the most comfort and the most desire to partake and interact with content or art that might reinforce your own current worldview, and get very frustrated when you come across content that doesn't. Like, for example, I wholly understand what your core meaning is with what you're saying, but it actually just reminded me of before when I was on my way back from work. Hey Shadow, hello. Whoa, thank you, Riley. Should I make a little face? I'll do it. Sorry, I don't know why I always do that one. But it reminded me that I have, say, for example, a a very fond association of ContraPoints, the YouTube creator, as a very leftist representation of the type of commentary, um, YouTube commentary that I eventually aspire to. But I have been seeing how there has been quite a bit of discourse recently that has been deconstructing her current views and many of the ways that she has not consistently maintained the political ideologies that were very, very important towards her establishment as a um, safe figure for many. So, thank you. Yeah. Oh my gosh, Riley, I can only imagine. I love it. These dresses are actually a little big for me, so I have to fix them and make them fit. But I love the idea of them being like fully life size. Um, but when it comes to being presented with this idea that challenges my comfort with a creator that I have to some degree created a parasocial assumption about them that maybe also then would reflect upon me if I had to acknowledge that maybe she isn't who I assumed her to be based on the content she's made or that I have consumed so far. I I don't like it. I don't like it. But I'm also forcing myself to listen. Now, that is perhaps and try and get a understanding of where this critique is coming from so that I can have a more nuanced understanding. Now, um, that is not always what people are comfortable doing. In general, I think there is a stronger inclination not to look into the thing that may challenge your perception, especially about somebody that you identify as a positive representation of an ideal that you feel or would like to represent yourself. And I also really appreciate what you said when it comes to like my content versus I am a little bit I think just exploring the idea for conversation's sake versus like attempting directly to um, mm, challenge the core meanings of any of the things that you were saying. Because I don't think the core meanings of anything that you're saying is wrong. Um, just that I'm taking components of what you're saying and having an opportunity to explore ways that I can fit into that statement and not fit into the statement itself. So I appreciate being able to do that. So thank you. Okay, but yes. Also, I think I just got a little notification that the picture behind has been done. Oh, what? Everything just went white. Am I still there? Can't even see. Oh no. Hello. No. Oh, okay. I'm still here. Okay, cool. I was a little worried there for a second. I was like, what have I done? I have done something terrible, I am sure. But I am glad that's not the case. Okay, I'm still here. Still here. Um, yay. Oh good. Oh good. Okay. Um, but when it comes to this concept of like what is qualifiable as good or bad, up until now, I don't know if we've actually qualified showing up as in a tabloid as being a good thing. But because it is something that a lot of people see and then kind of base their assumptions of what attractiveness often is, it's also base their assumption of what attractiveness is by the way the tabloids try to um, delegitimize the way that those actors are fitting the attractiveness narrative because the So it's a double-edged sword. It's doing so many things all at once, and it seems like such a simple thing. Where on one hand you have these images of these actors who are supposed to be representative of essentially the upper echelon of artistic creators, and are also supposed to be the upper echelon of the kind of westernized standards of beauty. And then you also have and them showing up in these magazines kind of indicates their belonging to that group. But at the same time, those magazines are trying to find images of them where they do not fit the standard that they are supposed to be representing in the community's eye. Although on a technical level, no one has explicitly said that those groups exist by saying, well, guess what? I'm part of the upper echelon of the acting community, and I am the standard of beauty. Even though I guess a lot of people would probably say that Henry Cavill would fit that. It's not like he's going around being like, I am indeed the upper echelon of acting and beauty standards. And Margot Robbie is not also saying that either, but both of them would show up on or Jacob Elordi are both showing up on gossip magazines and things like that. And John Edwards? John Edwards. Why is my brain not connecting who that is? John Edwards. Oh! The former politician and a lawyer. Ah! Wow, I forgot about him. That's fascinating. So sometimes it does also lean towards politics. Okay, so actually I have a commentary about that as well. This is interesting. So this is also still structured around the idea of whether I know I didn't explicitly say this either, but this is still structured around the idea of like the heyday of tabloid media. Now something has vastly changed when it comes to tabloid media. They used to be the core form of like drama channel social media that ever existed pre social media as we know it. So it used to be the only way that you would see these types of commentaries and see these behind the scenes looks at different creators, especially the people who are supposed to be in the upper echelons, was through tabloid journalism and paparazzis. And that is, Britney Spears' whole horrific experience with paparazzis and tabloid journalism, and how that contributed ultimately to her not conservation, conservatorship. Yes, was definitely a purposeful move on behalf of those who had financial incentive to encourage social support for her being placed under a conservatorship. Now, the other thing is that Kim K got so famous because of her very purposeful use of paparazzi and gossip magazines on tabloid journalism to place her into this ideal of the upper echelon of social society. Paris Hilton's another person who is not officially, like, she's an actress now. She's a musician technically, but she is probably one of the few people who consistently shows up in these spaces who is not officially part of any of the groups that are supposed to be the ones or consistently the ones in these spaces. Her involvement with like Lindsay Lohan and Kim K and Britney Spears, all of that squished together, definitely I think had a lot to do with it. And she was, I guess, an actress because she was on The Simple Life, but it was still supposed to be reality TV. Either way, there's still this like sense of very specific kinds of people are supposed to be recognized by being targeted by tabloid journalism. And then you have the onset of social media, which shifts, so like tabloid journalism, from physical media to online. And now it's all on social media. You can easily access anything that is tabloid-esque, but it's in a different form than it used to be, because yes, they definitely began the influencer thing. Huge factor in creating the influencer concept. Paris Hilton and Kim K were possibly the very first influencers who had access to the internet. Some of the very first influencers ever were, that would take a long time to go all the way back in history and figure that one out, because there's a lot more people who have utilized public forums and gossip essentially to capitulate themselves, catapult themselves to a concept of stardom. Donald Trump actually used to use tabloids hugely to promote the concept of himself as a wealthy person before he had his own wealth. He had familial wealth. He was given millions of dollars by his own dad, but he would pretend that he would have certain deals going through and leak information about him and certain deals happening and him and certain models meeting or other things to create this idea of him being of a higher echelon on a social order than he actually ever was. And he still does that to this day. Every way that he writes all of his Truth Social, yes, he actually kind of perfected the structure of fake news in his own career many times. Like, he didn't actually own any of the businesses that he had his name on. He just basically licensed his name out. So when those businesses went under, it didn't matter because he didn't lose anything. He got all the money he needed. And then he moved on to the next thing, which is why there were so many different businesses, which should have meant that he was absolutely in the worst kind of debt of all time. But yeah, no, he didn't actually have any stake that he had. He probably did still lose some money, but he didn't, like, it's not like he had to deal with that many, like, that, because there's what, 30, 40 different businesses that he had his name attached to that weren't actually his business, or people that he didn't pay when he did need to pay people. Like, there's a lot that he definitely utilized. Him and Ivana Trump, his Ivanka Trump's mother, who is buried on the golf course, they both would use fake names. His was John, which, my God, okay. But it was John, and he would call in tips to the tabloid journalism's offices, telling them, show up with your like reporters here, and he would make sure to stage certain scenes for them to capture, to then publish, because then he could avoid getting seen in a negative light as having leaked that information himself. And it was very effective for creating an idea that he was significantly more active than he was, and significantly more important than he was. So yeah, no, he is the king of fake news. But Paris Hilton used the same, or Kim K used the same tactics, or I should say, Kris Jenner used the same tactics to get her daughter famous and her family famous. Oh, I never made that connection. Oh, that's ooh, that is gross. Oh, that's bad. That is bad. That is very bad. Lord. Oh. Anyways. Ah. Well, everything that he writes in his social media posts and Twitter is lifted directly from how he would structure the tabloid titles that he would use in the 80s. In the 80s and the 90s, he did the same exact thing. And so he basically has lifted that. He's never stopped doing the same thing. Even his AI Jesus picture, it's exactly the same. Oh, okay, it was Fred. I was like, wait, what? Whoa. Jeez. That is creepy still. It's creepy. But John is also probably the most stereotypical name to use as a fake name because it's at certain points of time, it's the most common white male name, I think. But still, um, yeah. Mm. Anyways, so, um, tabloid journalism. Oh, it also now has shifted into spaces like Kick. Kick has kind of taken on the new form of tabloid journalism, and in a way that is exceptionally dangerous because it utilizes completely unregulated forms, one, to drive people towards extreme right mentalities and incel mentalities, and two, to also supposedly try and Ali, I will not ask what your fake names are so that you can keep them secret. I will keep them secret so you can use them without anyone knowing or having record of it. But that's, yeah. Um, I know. Well, obviously not an author. But again, you don't see the same comfort with interacting with this form of journalism as essentially a way of combating or instigating social narratives about different people outside of like the higher level Hollywood and music industry machine in the same way. But you still have like articles that call out authors or other performers of all genres and all kinds, especially if they turn out to be predators, like with Neil Gaiman. But you do still have the like online forums that have these conversations. They just don't seem to garner the same kind of rabid desire to consume the imagery of the artist in question. You maybe get a couple of you if you even with these kind of articles, you'll get pictures of the artist who may be called out, but they're not these. They're often press photos that are taken at events or in like essentially agreed upon spaces instead of kind of trying to um, create this sense of seeing behind the curtain of legacy media that is acceptable. And even with Neil Gaiman, when I was looking through all the different articles about what he has done and the reporting on him, the pictures that are used are from his own press tours. They're from him giving talks. They're from him at red carpets. They're from him. They're basically approved kinds of photos versus ones that are supposed to be illicit and secretly taken. And that is quite interesting to me because even as an author who has broken into the film space and the Hollywood machine of it all, he still is not seen as important in that, not important, but he's still not seen as consumable in that way for himself as a person. There's other artists who have been just as involved in the creation of transforming their own works from books into movies. Todd McFarlane, for example. Who else? Even Alan Moore. Just had another name on my tongue and it's like right there and I can't remember what it is. Man, Todd McFarlane even actually showed up in a that's true, Brant. You're very right. You're very, very, very right. But the way that those creators would be identified even if they break into creating film or creating TV shows or creating things where you fully see them identified as the artists behind the creation you're taking in. They're not taken in the same way as the artist. The artist themselves is not taken in the same way as the media they create. And actors in cinema specifically seem to be some of the only creators on a societal level that we have who will be taken in that way. And it's interesting because acting is seen as this like celebrity and fame focused positive, but it's not always respected. Even though it's not easy, acting is quite difficult. It's quite hard. It's actually extraordinarily boring. It's kind of grueling, and they often expect you to work like, 16 to 20 plus hour days. And it's quite fascinating how that works. Whereas at the same time, and you often don't get time off, but you do get, if you get to that upper echelon, you get paid a lot. And you may be expected to complete scenes and further takes, even if you've broken bones. Or you, like with Wednesday Addams, actually, speaking of her, when she did the dance scene, she had COVID. She was exhausted. She was sick. She was feverish. And she was freezing. And they had to redo that scene again and again and again because of the blood, which meant that they had to get her completely soaked in prop blood and everybody else, and then get everybody changed and then start all over again. So you know how many hours it took to get even like half of that scene? Like hours. It probably took days, and she had COVID when that was happening. So there's also still this very strong expectation of transcending human needs and having human rest days. It's a very odd space to be, but there's also an incredible amount of, I guess, compensation in the form of, there can be an incredible amount of compensation if you have the right lawyer and the right licensing agents and the right agents in general. But it's just such an odd medium to be the most consumed and dehumanized by the audience. But at the same time, tabloid media is still a way of keeping artists accountable. Now, we actually have social media to do that, so we don't really need tabloid media in the same way anymore. And you see that in the sales of tabloid magazines. So tabloid magazines were originally the agreement of where they would be placed in terms of a grocery store, or where they would be placed for the licensing for where those magazines would be placed, was actually purchased back in the 70s, and it has not been changed since. So that is why they have said Oro was making her frustration known. Oh God. Yes, exactly, Ellie. There's this sense of dehumanization where there's this desire for the story at the expense of the creator, and essentially, and also a stronger appreciation for those who are able to put aside their own humanity in the favor of the audience's desire to have a new consumable component of art or piece of art. And that is a very frustrating but consistent issue, I think, with all artistic mediums. I mean, like Missy Copeland again, when she did the Sinners dance performance at the Oscars, she had just had hip replacement surgery. That takes you out for months. Months. And she'd done that in December, and it was what, late January, early February? That is ridiculous. physically to be capable of doing that is just wild. But that is the assumption, is that if you are going to be elevated in any way, shape, or form to the echelons that allow you to consistently make your art, you're also going to have to sacrifice sometimes your own capability of what makes you able to perform in the first place. It's such an odd, it's such an odd social contract that we as an audience can call out as a problem, but also still to some degree hope and expect is going to be transcended and maintained regardless. Now, I do see in our other forms of how media is consumed, especially as we shift more towards online, there is a significant, yeah, the show must go on, exactly, Bran. There's a pretty significant shift in the mentality behind who is allowed to rest. Like, for creators like myself who are very much in the smallest of the small levels, I absolutely am very fortunate that when I have a bunch of things go wrong or interfere with my capability to create or to make things or to connect, it's I've received such an incredible, positive, and supportive understanding. But if I was a huge creator with, thousands and thousands of followers or millions of followers, people would be mad if I didn't give the right form of acknowledgement for what was going on. And the frustration would be quite sincere because people would have come to expect my presence as a component of their schedule. And if I'm not able to maintain that, then that would be quite frustrating and disrupting for a large amount of people. And I think that that is such a fascinating component of how humans operate, where we can conceptually, when a person is directly in front of us, fully understand. But if that person doesn't seem immediate or real or human to us, then we don't understand. Then we get frustrated. Then we're like, what do you mean you have issues? What do you mean you have timing constraints? What do you mean you're tired? What is any of that? I'm tired. It's such a funny component of how we operate as humans, where distance makes the consent of the experience completely different. It is okay to look at actors and want to consume them and even identify the desire to consume them through the form of tabloid media as a fine thing to do that doesn't bear that much questioning if the actor feels far away. But if the actor feels close and someone actually personal, then we are generally more protective of them as a person being allowed to be a person. And so it's this interesting thing that, in a way, tabloid journalism has created this unexpected hierarchy that isn't actually necessary. I wouldn't say is it always based on whether or not we are appreciating the artistic merit of the actor and creator who is showing up, musician or otherwise, who is showing up on the front page. Rather, we're using it as a way to judge if somebody is important on a larger cultural level. And I think that's the fascinating component with social media is how that's shifting the conversation, because of the fact that in some ways, some ways a parasocial way, we're being forced to realize the humanity of the people that we used to hold up on pedestals when we only interacted with them through very structured, scheduled environments. And we didn't have live streams, we didn't have opportunities for them to mess up, we didn't get to see them trip on stuff, we didn't get to see them make stupid comments or just be human, because there wasn't the kind of consent involved in how we did see them was pre-social media very much focused 110% on being able to peek behind what their consent was, which was their art. Um, yes, exactly, Brant. It does. It costs millions. It does. You are very right. You are very, very right. And that is also really tough because it means that you can't have human needs if it's going to cost millions of dollars when somebody is late, when somebody gets sick unexpectedly, when there are not the right structures put in place to ensure that a person who needs to be able to perform is able to. It's like this interesting component where there's an awareness of that, but there's also a desire to um, continue and to encourage encourage the people who are willing to push themselves until they cannot or like exist to push themselves. Brendan Fraser is a great example as well because he used to say that he was comfortable doing any stunt, anything, and he caused himself so many injuries. So many injuries when he was younger, but it also meant that he finally got a chance to act and to get roles that did allow him to attain the level of success that allowed him to continue working. And as soon as he put his foot down because he had an experience that was devastatingly, just a devastating experience, he was no longer seen as worth investing in. It was very frustrating to see this kind of dichotomy happening where I could fully understand on a business level how absolutely stressful it is to have all of that pressure of multiple different investors, multiple different things, all pushing on you to get something accomplished. And then one part of the entire cog in the machine that you need to be working together can't work together. It's mind numbing. It's absolutely just infuriating. But it is also really tough to hold both of those things to have importance at once. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Exactly, Ellie. They still need the show to happen. And they're almost more willing to. It's like why they maintained the casting and the not just the casting, but they maintained the production or the promotion and release of that final Justice League movie with Ezra Miller, even though all that horrible stuff had come out about him and his crimes and or their crimes and everything. Um, when they didn't have much of a choice because they couldn't afford to fully reshoot it with and also get the actors back because of commitments they already had to other multi-million-dollar projects. Like you just can't. You just don't get to do that. So they released something knowing that it would cost them, but it would cost them less than trying to redo it, which is awful in all ways. So it's awful on all sides. So yeah, there's so many components to this. There's so many layers to this conversation. I feel like in some ways we only just started, but I'm also wondering if maybe this is a good place to pause and then think and then see what else comes up. So maybe we should do a part 2 for um, what tabloid journalism says about the worthiness of artists and how one is measured by tabloid journalism as worthy in as an artist um, on my next stream. I'm so glad. This was fun. This was so fun. I think like I alluded to in the Discord, I was sick. I like passed out and then I could not get up for a long time. And um I think I had a fever and I was not well. So I finally have like dragged myself into an upright sitting position, and I am really really glad that I was able to do that because I really enjoyed being able to have this conversation with everybody. It was really fun. So yes. Mm, I like that. I like that, Brant. I like that a lot. But yes. Okay. We're gonna pause for now and then we will come back. Oh right, because Sunday is watch party day. And I also owe everybody a watch party because we are a watch party behind. Thank you, Brant. Thank you so much. Yeah, I mean, Ellie, I'm not surprised. It's been a pretty intense last month and a half, and I probably should have known that this was gonna hit me at some point. I just didn't expect it to happen like so intensely out of nowhere. Like I was just like doing so fine and like do, and then yeah, it was like sit down, sit down, stop, lay down, stop. Like that's basically, it was like, you know, those image that was it when the when somebody pushes your head back down. It's like it was like that. It was very silly. But yeah, so I will be back. I actually am. I will probably be streaming Friday night, and I think to do our Friday or Saturday to make up for the watch party that we missed, and also working on my next video topic so we can get that started. I am hoping to have my most recent video finally out as soon as possible. So keep your eyes peeled. Oh, I hate that saying. Okay, stay tuned. There we go. Yay! Thank you, Brant. Thank you, thank you. Oh my gosh. All right. Thank you so much, everybody, and I will see you all again soon in probably a few days. So good night.